The House could vote today on a resolution to censure Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and strip her of her committee assignments in response to her comments criticizing Charlie Kirk just after his assassination. Chad Pergram is live on Capitol Hill with the latest on this effort. Good morning to you, Chad.
Aisha, good morning. Republicans believe Ilhan Omar has gone too far again. She called Charlie Kirk reprehensible and reposted a video condemning him. Nancy Mace wants to censure Omar. This comes amid calls for calm.
This is the only time to do this. We have played nice for far too long. I mean, we've been so nice. Now is the time to push back harder than we've ever before, figuratively.
Censure is the second highest form of punishment in the House, just below expulsion. Omar has been in trouble before. The House voted to remove Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee after she made anti-Semitic comments. That was in 2023. Omar dismissed Mace's efforts.
I mean, if she wants to lower the bar on what a censure looks like here, she can go at it.
Do you have any regrets about the comments that you made about Charlie Kirk at all?
I did not make the comments that she's accusing me of making, so.
Omar has not apologized. Fellow squad member Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said Republicans are abusing their power. The House has censured 4 Democrats in the past 2 years.
It's ridiculous. Like every single one of these things, every time a Republican in this House is offended, they file a censure resolution. I'm not here to be fighting over whatever people's schoolyard thing is for the day.
Republicans want to get Democrats on the record opposing the censure. The GOP will argue that Democrats are not doing enough to rebuke violent rhetoric and lower the temperature. Omar could become only the 29th member ever censured by the House. Aisha?
Okay, Chad Pergram on the case for us. Chad, thank you. Thank you, Mike.
So let's bring in Charlie Kirk. Charlie, good morning to you. Before the president left for London yesterday on the South Lawn, he said we're going to Chicago next. There were questions about Memphis, Tennessee, which is happening right now with the Democratic mayor and governor there in Chicago as well. He said we're going there next. Kristi Noem on X yesterday. President Trump's been clear if politicians will not put the safety of their citizens first, this administration will. I was on the ground in Chicago today to make clear we are not backing down. Hey, maybe it happens, Charlie, and maybe the folks who are resisting like it.
Yeah. Oh, I think without a doubt, I think the people from whose neighborhoods a lot of these criminal aliens are being picked up, they do applaud this and they do cheer it. And by the way, a lot of those have leaned heavily Democrat in the past. I thought what J.B. Pritzker just said right there was kind of significant, that he kind of gives away the whole game when he acknowledges that there are people that need to be picked up. Now, he adds a bunch of other nonsense on there about how they're just rounding up brown-skinned people who talk differently. That's not true at all. What they are focusing on right now are people who are here in the country illegally, and specifically people who have additional crimes that they are suspected of or accused of or have been found guilty of. And that's who they're going after. And so I think that's a significant change on the part of Pritzker. The other thing that's going on, of course, at the exact same time is you have the administration broadcasting to people who are here illegally that, look, we will help you get out of the country. We'll give you money to get out of the country. You can go back to your country and you can try to come back to the United States legally. And I think most normal, rational people, voters, when they see those two actions going on, they think, wow, this is all very reasonable.
Want to switch gears now to the Charlie Kirk assassination investigation. We're learning a lot of information, but it was this moment that gave a lot of folks pause. Watch this.
It was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who was transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love.
I don't know what you think about that, but that was reporter Matt Gutman over at ABC, and this is how he explained his commentary, not once, but twice. On X this morning, he said, yesterday I tried to underscore the jarring contrast between this cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk, a man who dedicated his life to public dialogue, and the personal disturbing text read aloud by the Utah County attorney at the press conference. I deeply regret that my words did not make that clear. Charlie.
You know, I'm glad that he attempted to apologize. But, you know, the real problem here, Aisha, is the idea that, and you've covered these things, Bill, you've covered these things. When you're covering a very serious event, like a murder trial or a hearing for a murder trial of an assassination, you go with a certain mindset. And the mindset is one that is very serious, it's very factual based, it's very, and you are aware of the human casualty that is going on here. And you are respectful of what you're covering. And the idea that this guy is going to walk into this, to cover this story, and have sort of these fantasies, these fairy tale fantasies play out in his mind, I think goes to the heart of the lack of seriousness, the lack of gravity that these people approach a story like this. And it boggles my mind. I don't understand it. And I know that reporters have to deal with a lot of ugly, grave, dark stuff, especially when you're talking about something like this. But I don't know how you get from the point where you should be to where this guy ended up. It is appalling. It's disgusting. I guess the only, maybe saving grace to it all is that I think that the media has so befouled themselves. They've so lost all credibility that I think a lot of people just sort of may have heard that, whoever was watching, and just sort of shrugged and thought, well, you know, good thing I don't listen to them anymore.
Charlie, thanks for coming on.
You bet.
We could have taken this in a number of different ways, but appropriate to point out that, you know, he did go to X, but why he said what he said twice is an open question. Thank you, Charlie. Talk soon.
Thanks, Charlie.
Right. All right.
The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. Roommate, you weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson, I am. I'm sorry. Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence.
As prosecutors in Utah describing some of the text messages Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin sent to his roommate. These are text messages that an ABC News reporter described like this.
It was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love.
Touching, not the word that comes to mind as an assassin admitted to his assassination, but the backlash Matt Gutman received prompted him to apologize, posting in part that he, quote, tried to underscore the jarring contrast between Kirk's death and the text between the suspected assassin and his roommate, and that he deeply regrets his words that he did not make clearer for his audience. The apology coming after Gutman's comments sparked outrage that Jesse Waters summed up like this.
ABC's touched by text messages between an assassin and his trans roommate. Disney is tickled by the intimacy of a killer telling his trans roommate how to orchestrate a cover-up. This isn't a love story. This is a cold-blooded murderer obstructing justice.
Now, as we continue to learn what may have motivated Tyler Robinson to allegedly carry out that deadly attack on Charlie Kirk, the prosecutors, of course, outlined exactly what they thought that was. A bipartisan group of senators from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman and Dave McCormick, spoke with Bret Baier last night, calling on the American people to tone down the violent rhetoric.
There's just no place in this country for political violence. It's absolutely something. It runs counter to the very idea of free speech and freedom.
Any kinds of extreme rhetoric, left or right, is really dangerous. And now it's just Luigi had his latest thing. This coward executed a father and a businessman just because you happen to disagree with his business. It's just unacceptable, and we have to just absolutely turn the heat down.
Harris, as the world heard those text messages yesterday, They probably got a chill, much like I did, thinking about someone, a suspected assassin, describing in detail what he had done. But an ABC reporter's first gut reaction is to call them touching.
Look, I don't know Matt Gutman, so I can't say what he was thinking, what he wasn't thinking. I thought the apology was an interesting one because I don't think it cleared up the core issue there. Why did you even think to talk about the love from a killer? Why does it matter? He killed. I think the point is just to cover the case. And what I'm looking for in this case is you've got a roommate in Lance Twiggs, because we know his name now. You've got a transitioning roommate who was having a conversation about his lover after he killed a guy. Like, I think that's what we should be looking at. So I can't speak for that reporter, but I can tell you that he apparently thought there might be a home for those comments. I think he's finding out that maybe that home ends at the threshold of his door.
Well, I heard this and I couldn't believe it. I want you to listen to Montel Williams describe Tyler Robinson as a love-torn child, just a kid. Watch.
What we're really talking about, hear me because I'm going to throw you when I say this. We're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship, and somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
Defending a significant other, except I want you to listen very closely to what the county attorney said and what the CNN legal analyst said on the very network Montel Williams made those comments. Listen.
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate.
Emily, on the back end, we were supposed to have the CNN legal analyst there who went on to vouch for the county attorney and said that's not a partisan actor. That's someone, when he talks about a motive, he is talking from a place of fact, knowing he has a trial in front of him.
And especially cognizant that every word out of his mouth in this public setting can also be used against him by defense. So yes, treading carefully to make sure he's absolutely glued to only what we know. I think the ABC comments and the CNN comments that you played earlier are absolutely, it is a new horrifying low. The only thing that I agree with is, yes, the alleged murderer is stunted, indeed. But to make this about the periphery, to make this about... What immediately came to my mind when I was seeing that and reading that is how a lot of domestic violence victims, the last text they receive from their husband or their partner or their love is something like, you know, if you won't live with me, you won't live with anyone, like that kind of thing. I will love you till the day I die. And then they end up getting murdered. That is sick. And it is sick and twisted to somehow bring that into the callous, cold-blooded, premeditated murder of Charlie Kirk that has nothing to do with his personal or her personal relationships on the side. Shame on those networks. And by the way, that sort of like tepid apology did nothing. That was a word salad and did nothing to obfuscate the real meaning of his words that were actually quite clear, buddy. Quite clear what you meant the first time you said it.
Yeah, so you have the partisan commentators and I guess the partisan reporter making these comments. Cheryl, Caitlin Collins presents herself as a White House correspondent who only goes by the facts, but I don't know if she was sleeping during the press conference yesterday. She didn't seem to find these facts.
We don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governor's had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know.
We don't have a motive yet.
What's happening with?
Really, that's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened
Senator.
to fire the gun in celebration.
Maybe someone could send this to Caitlin, but Cheryl, I just want to put on the screen. We don't have a motive. This is the roommate. Why did you do this? Why did I do it, Robinson? Yeah. And he says quite clearly, I had enough of his hatred, referring to Charlie. Some hatred cannot be negotiated with. That is a motive written in a text message.
So don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, apparently, if you're Caitlin Collins. That's really troubling. That not just that, but the apologist that we're starting to see, not just with Luigi Mangione, which we saw in New York yesterday, the craziness down there, but then obviously somebody like Montel Williams. And the Gutman thing, I was floored by that. I don't know neither to your point, but I was floored when you said that. I said you were actually trying to empathize and get sympathy for a cold-blooded killer who, yes, in those text messages said exactly why he did it. His parents have come out and said that he had become more radicalized, he had gone more left. Like, this is all in the evidence that's being presented by the prosecutors and officials in Utah. It's really shocking to me what has happened in our country. I'm really trying to wrap my head around still where we're at right now.
Tom, in the media, they always love to lecture. It's a favorite line of theirs. We have to have a common set of facts. We can't live in conspiracy land. It seems that they're denying a common set of facts. You referred to not just the text messages, but the mom saying he had a leftist ideology. It developed within the last year. We have facts as laid out in an indictment.
Yeah, and I think here's what I'm going to say about all these people. Montel, he had his own thing. We have people trying to change the narrative. They don't want it to be political, so they're going to reach for anything. As to the on-scene reporter, I want to try to offer a little grace because I sit in a warm studio and we have these on-scene reporters that report in to me all the time when I'm hosting a show. And they have such a hard job. And I always think to myself, I'm glad I'm not out there during a murder scene or a hurricane, and I would say the wrong thing. The way that they always have to report back and sometimes put a fresh perspective on it. This guy said something totally stupid. He apologized, and I will say this. I feel like he is marinating in political correctness like so many people in our society. Do you remember the old Seinfeld thing? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I see reporters doing this when there's a protected group, whether it's a racial group or a sexual group, and they want to say, well, the assailant was gay. That's the good part, but he was a murderer. That's the bad part. They try to add this thing, and I feel like that's what people do. They're reaching for this thing, and it causes people to say absurd things.
That was brilliant. Marinating in political correctness.
How about we marinate in the facts?
Yeah.
That's a good rule of thumb for a reporter, a good rule of thumb for Caitlin Collins and the like.
You talk to the shooter's mother, you talk to the shooter's father, you talk to the local district attorney, you talk to the FBI director or the deputy director of the FBI. You look at every ounce of evidence that we have, and it is clear. This is a person who grew up in a pretty normal family, actually had a pretty good home life, who was radicalized by the far left, by the social networks of the far left, by the ideas of the far left, and got so far down the path of radicalization that he killed my friend. That is not a both sides problem. My friend is dead because of left-wing political radicalization, and if you want to cut that out, then be honest about it and look yourself in the mirror.
Turning back to the Kirk assassination investigation, a few minutes ago, the Washington County, Utah sheriff giving us more insight into the suspect's surrender.
My friend drove Tyler and his parents to my office, where he was greeted by plainclothes detectives. So that was part of the deal. Is Tyler knew it was just inevitable with all the law enforcement pressure that his picture in the news, the gun on the news. He knew it was inevitable that he would be caught. He was fearful of a SWAT team hit on his house, or he was fearful of being shot by law enforcement. So part of the negotiation and getting him to bring himself in was that we would treat it as delicate and as soft as possible to make him feel comfortable to where he would show up at my office, and that's exactly what happened.
The suspected killer of Charlie Kirk facing the death penalty after getting formally charged with aggravated murder and a slew of other counts. There were 7 in total. Prosecutors in Utah describing some of the disturbing text messages the alleged assassin sent to his roommate/lover. And now, how did the liberal media cover it? Well, instead of being horrified, ABC's Matt Gutman and Montel Williams spun it like a twisted love story.
It was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. This duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. Text messages that are so fulsome, so robust, so apparently, allegedly self-incriminating, and yet on the other hand, so touching, right?
We're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship. And somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally.
ABC's Gutman later apologizing and posting, quote, "I deeply regret that my words did not make that clear, but let there be zero doubt here, I unequivocally condemn this horrific crime." And as prosecutors lay out the mountain of evidence that shows that the suspect was overtaken by left-wing ideology, they were explicit about that. CNN is still confused about the motive.
We don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governor's had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know.
We don't have a motive yet.
What's
really?
happening with?
Really, that's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened
Senator,
to fire the gun in celebration.
I'm not arguing with you politically. I'm saying that law enforcement has not put a specific motive. You know that there's a difference of what they're putting in a legal argument than what you're talking about, and you're not even. We're not even arguing about.
All right. Well, I'd like to pull up the motive. Caitlin must have missed the press conference that day. Greg, here are the texts from the roommate. Roommate, why? Tyler, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Tyler, I had enough of his hatred. Some hatred cannot be negotiated out. He hated Charlie Kirk and what he stood for. That seems to be the motive.
You know, I don't see it at all, Kaylee. I just see love-struck, non-binary Romeo and Juliet. I'm waiting for the American Crime Story to be released. And they, of course, they're gonna make them the heroes, and they're gonna make Charlie, based on complete fabrications, the bad guy, because that's what Hollywood does. The anti-hero always trumps the hero, and they will never realize that Charlie was above both. Imagine doing this to other horrible people. You know, yeah, Hitler killed 6 million Jews, but did you ever see his watercolors? Or, you know, John Wayne Gacy, he killed some kids, but he's great around pets. You know, just because, you know, really bad people can have a moment of tenderness, but it doesn't deserve your observation when you're reporting a story. You're not hosting The Bachelorette. And it sucks because his name's Gutman, so close to Gutfeld. But you see, I think what bugs me about this is that we've seen this before. If you're old enough to remember, from Angela Davis to Luigi Mangione, the blood doesn't even have to dry before they rewrite the narrative, and it will always be based on the story that they prefer. And this is how it starts. It starts with the text. I go back to Charlottesville. When Trump said there were fine people on both sides, he was talking about the statue debate. The media knew that, but they changed it. So it was, no, he's talking about Nazis. That was the tentpole hoax that allowed all the other hoaxes to come in, and it was the one that Joe Biden references. I ran for president because of Charlottesville, because he said fine people. So that story was warped by people who had to believe that Trump was a racist bigot. So they created this story, and now they're going to do this with Charlie. And it's our responsibility to stop it. And that means just being relentless about it. The same way that the fine people hoax was dismantled by Cortez, I can't think of his first, Steve Cortez, Scott Adams, Joel Pollack. Everybody's got to do this with this one in the name of Charlie. You can't let him get away with it.
Absolutely. You know, Brian, it's very strange to me that two separate people could arrive at the same conclusion. Hearing an assassin lay out exactly how they did this to their lover, and you have Gutman walking away with this Romeo and Juliet love story, and then you have Montel Williams, a love-torn child, a kid who tried to defend his significant other. How do two people arrive at that conclusion?
I mean, you stole out of my thunder when you said if you need a motive, if you need any help. All he said is, I had enough of this hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated. He took him out because of that. So I think, how would Montel Williams, who we both know, I think is a good guy. He's going through a lot of physical problems, but a great talk show host for 30 years. How could he sit there and try to rationalize, well, this is a love story gone wrong, misconstrued? How could Matt Gutman's been doing this for 20 plus years? And I think he does a really good job, obviously, a network anchor. Yeah. Caitlin Collins, who I know, does
you know everybody.
I do, because I don't want to make it personal. I think the one thing is missing is when people talk about why is Israel acting like this in Gaza, when people are saying why the people on the Five, why is Fox News getting so upset about Charlie Kirk? We know him, and you haven't seen the video. You didn't watch the 10/7 video of what happened to the Israelis that led to the Gaza incursion and the war. And I hate to say it, but you didn't know Charlie Kirk. That's bad on you. Maybe not your fault, but you didn't see how he died. If you saw how he died, you wouldn't be saying, it just seems like a guy that didn't know his gender and was separated from his family. Let's try to make sense of this. And to your point, there are people, very smart people, that will say to you, well, we know the laptop wasn't real. You know, we know the laptop was fake. And I go, what are you talking about? They don't watch us. They don't make any effort to go past the network news or CNN, MSNBC. There are people that really think that Vladimir Putin put Donald Trump in the office the first time. They didn't see the unwinding of the Mueller report. So these are not uneducated people. They have just no idea. And when Jimmy Kimmel came out last night or the night before. And what did he say in that 12-second soundbite? Jimmy Kimmel came out and said, these MAGA guys wanted to pretend that this guy wasn't one of them. So you might go, of course he's not. Of course he's not MAGA. He hates Donald Trump. He hates Charlie Kirk. All you have to do is see that. So you think, what's the big deal? He doesn't get much ratings, and he's just going to hate Trump. But there's people that only get their news from him, ABC, the rest, and they don't know that he is not MAGA, that this is an assassination of Kirk, that he did hate him. It was intended for him. He horrifically took someone out in the prime of his life. And the only way you could sit there and try to rationalize this as a relationship, or did he see star-crossed, did he have a hard time dealing with his gayness, was if you didn't see the reality of how Charlie died.
Yeah, Kimmel saying the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize the kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them.
One of the most asinine things I ever heard.
Conspiracy land, literally. Harold, there's 3 data points that to me, we talk about a common set of facts. The left loves this. What are the common set of facts? Fact 1, we showed you the text messages. Fact 2, the mother said he was turning towards left-wing ideology. He became enveloped in this trans ideology. Fact 3, the county attorney, Jeff Gray, not a political partisan actor, said he was motivated by left-wing ideology. It's an inescapable conclusion, so why can't the left acknowledge this set of facts?
Well, good to be back with everybody. I think that, these excesses on both sides I don't get too caught up in them. I think that people can arrive at different decisions about a set of events, and it's not for me to judge them or not judge them. I reach my own conclusions. I think what happened to Charlie Kirk was a total assault on our country. I didn't agree with Charlie on most things he said publicly. I didn't know him well enough to know some of his private feelings, but the public things I didn't agree with. But what I admired most about him was he believed in dissent and believed in open debate and believed in honest debate. And he certainly didn't deserve what happened. 2, I listened to President Trump when he talked about this young man, the suspected assassin's family. He said that it seemed like it was a good family. Maybe the president was saying it because they were supporters of him, but he said it seemed like a good family. It seems like somewhere along the line, he got radicalized. Something happened to this kid. And I think about how we kind of solve these things. He may have been radicalized by left ideology, and probably was. But Katie, I'm sorry, Kaylee, you may be right. I heard what Montel said, and I had never considered what he said. He's likely wrong, but I'd never considered that maybe, just give me 1 second, Brian. We're all human, and that's the opinion he reached. I don't necessarily agree with him. But here's what I do know. You look over the last several years, and you see the number of killings like this. They generally have a couple things in common, at least the experts say. There's either, or one of all things, there's either some trauma, childhood trauma involved with these people. They have some sort of personal grievance about something. 3, there's some script or manifesto they've concocted in their head that justifies what they've done. And 4, they have access to a gun. And 5th, we're seeing increasingly, they're young white guys who are being radicalized or have some sort of massive exposure to something online. That's what I want to figure out how we get at. And in this case, there's no doubt, Kaylee, hold on 1 second. There's no doubt the leftist ideology played a role. I'm not denying.
Even Abby Phillip acknowledged there was
but there are a lot of people who are exposed to leftist ideology who don't kill people. There are a lot of people who are exposed to neo-Nazism who don't kill people. Sure. You look at the guy who went up to Buffalo in 2022, 18 years old, drove 200 miles and killed 9 people in a grocery store in a black neighborhood. And he said he was a neo-Nazi. I think people who have different...
That's apples and oranges.
Yeah,
I know, but let me...
Radicalization is what I'm saying.
Yes, okay, but I guess what I'm saying is, I understand what you're saying about the radicalization, but the mechanism of the radicalization is way different when you have a constant drumbeat of brainwash, where you have 8 to 10 years of people in the media. These are not... wait. These are not rock stars. These are not artists saying Nazi, Nazi. These are news anchors. These are politicians. These are college professors that are actually legitimizing this and saying it over and over again. This is why this is different.
No, but Harold,
but President Trump said what I said. He said that something happened to it. There was a radicalization. My only point is, I want to get after that. If you're right, and you probably are right.
Harold, it's not a probably.
If it's a leftist ideology, how do we stop it from radicalizing?
I want to get Kennedy in here, but
I'm just saying, y'all interrupted me. I was just trying to make my point.
This is very cut and dry. You cannot get more cut and dry than why did you kill Charlie Kirk? We could even pull up the text message. I had enough of his hatred. What did Charlie stand for? Charlie wasn't a left-winger. Charlie was a mainstream conservative. Charlie was a Christian. Charlie was a constitutionalist. And the man hated that, and he wrote it in a text, Kennedy.
Yeah, I mean, not too different from Luigi Mangione's manifesto that you talked about, which, I'm sorry, if you are trying to instill fear in people using your politics or based on their politics, that's terrorism.
Yep.
And I'm shocked that they dropped those 2 charges from Mangione.
Well, the court did. The prosecutor tried to do it. Right,
yeah.
the court did.
The judge allowed that. And, Paul Morrow's like, Alvin Bragg should probably appeal that.
Yeah.
You talk about trauma. A lot of people have had trauma. A lot of people, most people have had childhood trauma. They don't go out and murder someone that they find to be abhorrent. I'm sure there's a lot of people that Oprah disagrees with. She had a very tough childhood. She's not going to murder someone. But my problem is, the defense that, oh, he's this love-struck teen who is so angry on behalf of his lover. A lot of people are angry. So, Randy Weingarten said, well, leftists, they go to the college. They sign petitions to keep Charlie Kirk off the campus. MAGA people, Trump supporters, they're the ones who murder people. No, it was this person. And now they're trying to take this chasm between confronting someone rhetorically with ideas.
You have to look at me. I'm agreeing with you. I'm only making the point.
They are
that radicalization
normalizing the way they've normalized the terms fascist and Hitler and authoritarian and Nazi. They're doing the same thing with murder, and they're trying to equate someone's anger, which can be voiced in words, with someone picking up a bolt-action rifle and aiming it at a father's head and killing him in front of people in cold blood. It is not the same thing. And that is an objective fact. You said that you're not going to judge people because everyone has their own subjective interpretation. I disagree vehemently. This is objectively wrong. I don't care what side you're on. I don't care what you disagree with. I don't care what your politics are. It is never, ever okay. And there's never been a better time for people like Randy Weingarten and Montel Williams, who was my favorite Montel since the 90s. But you know what? Montel Jordan.
Not Montel Jordan?
Montel Jordan is my favorite Montel once again because this is how we do it.
No, I am not suggesting in any way that I agree with them. But I give people the space. I want to understand what they're saying because clearly, if everyone were like you and me and you, people wouldn't be being killed while they're giving a speech. If everyone were like the 5 of us, people could have their views, people could state their positions, and we wouldn't have violence gripping us. We have a problem in our society. And if we think we can brush it away, flush it away by saying, oh, it's just because these leftists did this and this leftist did that.
There's no brushing. There's no flushing.
I'm only saying
we gotta go.
President Trump said this kid was radicalized. If we don't face this thing with social media and look at it in totality, we're unfortunately going to be talking about this a lot more.
We got to run, but this only changes when people on the left, like Senator Fetterman, stands up and says, stop comparing Trump to Hitler. That is the only way this ends.
Welcome back. Former President Obama weighing in on the assassination of Charlie Kirk, calling the murder horrific and a tragedy, and accusing President Trump and his administration of fueling political division. Watch.
When I hear not just our current president, but his aides, who have a history of calling political opponents vermin, enemies, who need to be targeted, that speaks to a broader problem.
Broader problem? Let me be clear. Barack Obama conveniently failing to call out the left's assassination culture and the Democrats' obsession with calling Republicans Hitler.
Do you think we throw around Nazi too often?
Probably, but also I think it's really important people know their history.
Do you think that that's contributed to this, or are those critics wrong?
They're absolutely wrong. There should not be anyone that faces consequences because they actually know history.
We cannot allow this heinous murder to be exploited as an excuse for the advance of authoritarian rule.
All right. So, Brian, I want to go to you about President Obama. He is calling out President Trump for saying that some in his administration have used terms like vermin and enemies. But I think I remember people in the Obama and Biden administrations using very pointed, cruel language directed right at President Trump.
Deplorable when you talk about targeted.
Irredeemable, Nazi.
Irredeemable, Nazi. And Barack Obama, I always look at him as when he became an ex-president, or I'm used to ex-presidents, acting above it all. You know, we're used to seeing H.W. Bush and Clinton going and helping out people after they get hit by a tidal wave or something horrific. They just came together. They stopped talking politics. Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. They just become above it all, almost statesmen. I don't want to get into that. If you go up to George W. Bush now, you don't even know if he's Republican or Democrat. He won't even talk about it. Barack Obama's become more political. He has not left Washington, even though he hasn't had the job in 6, 7 years or a job. He's probably got $200,000 or $300,000 to sit down and talk to somebody just now over in Erie, Pennsylvania. I expected him to have lofty, grandiose views and thinks of things he could have done better. Instead, he's got more in the mud, more in the weeds, and he's got to say to himself, what did I actually accomplish? Because it's all being undone. I'll bring it to the White House response. Barack Obama is the architect of the modern political division in America, famously for demeaning millions of patriotic Americans who opposed his liberal agenda as bitter for clinging to their guns and religion. You'd have to say, even though his rhetoric is great and his talent is fantastic, we were never as divided as we were when he was president, and he wants to make sure we never forget it.
I mean, obviously, we need to learn from, internalize, and somehow grow from this moment, Harold, which at this point feels a little impossible, but we have to come together and we have to do it. Was the country more or less politically divided at the end of President Obama's term?
So I think every president, I'm going to just answer your question this way. I think it's relative probably, but I think every president is an answer to the previous president. And first term for President Trump came after President Obama's presidency, and then President Biden came after the first term of President Trump's presidency. So you can kind of see the continuum.
Wait, let me write this down.
J.K. Rowling, who
Bob Lemon replaced Billy Martin.
Every president's a response to the previous president. My friend Greg Constant is right to quote J.K. Rowling, and I agree a lot with what she said. She said something I thought was so important. She said, "Words are not violence. When you pretend that views that oppose your own are violence, you're justifying the use of actual violence towards the speaker." President Obama, I thought, was trying to say that in the first part of that sit down he had. And then he said the things he said about President Trump. Now, I think two things can be right at once. I think timing is important. I think as we find ourselves at this moment, I wish that President Obama had said all of this right after and said to Democrats and Republicans, particularly Democrats, this is horrible. This is an affront to our country and to what we stand for. He is still the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the two biggest voices in our party. I'm glad he finally said some words there. As we sit here today, I do, in my lifetime, and you've worked for a president, Kayleigh, I've not. I don't remember a time when the president, right after a tragedy, didn't say something really trying to envelop and to bring the country together. Now, President Trump, I give him the benefit of the doubt because Charlie was a great pal of his. He considered him another son of the way that it's been described. So the personal pain had to be so gripping. But as time went on, I thought President Trump has gotten better in terms of his language and bringing us together. The person that brought us together the most was this governor out there in Utah, who right away said, "Look, we didn't riot out here, we didn't burn anything out here. People out here were upset. We are angry, and we want to do everything we possibly can to bring justice to this situation." That's what we need national voices doing, and I hope that more Democrats, particularly Democrats, are doing that over the next several days.
No, he absolutely did not. So, Kayleigh, I ask you this. So if, to Harold's point, and I think he's right about this, I think every successive administration is a response to the previous administration. So did President Trump start us down the road of attacking one another, or did that start with President Obama or even before?
I think President Trump is forced into a certain position because of the media's duplicity. When the media goes out there and does what we just played in the last block, makes this a Romeo and Juliet love story, lies about the motive, the only way to change that is the man with the biggest microphone in the world, President Trump, saying exactly what Tyler Robinson's motive was. And that is what he was doing. And good for him for doing it. For Obama, and I'll do this quickly, I know we're short on time, part of the job of the president is to pull people together. Okay, Have you talked to Joe Biden, your vice president, when he said the vaccinated have a right to be angry at the unvaccinated? Half the country should be angry at the other half. Did you talk to him when he said that those who oppose the Georgia voting law were segregationist, half the country segregationist? Did you talk to him when he called MAGA a clear and present danger, a threat to the very foundation of the republic? They do not respect the rule of law and the Constitution. Did you talk to your vice president? Was that pulling the country together? And did you talk to him when your vice president, Joe Biden, called half of the country, MAGA supporters, garbage? Spare me the pull the country together language until you talk to your former vice president, because he ripped us apart for 4 years straight.
Yes, he was not exactly a continuation of the Obama presidency. But where do we stand when you've got a former president attacking a current president? Does it make things better?
You know, I'm not that worried about it because, man, is he boring. Like, it's very hard to, like, actually absorb anything Obama's saying. You're just going, like, come on, dude. You could drive a truck through those spaces between words. It's just like, we get it. You're important, historic, but try to speed it up a bit. He is really the most boring person on the planet. And that says something. I have a rule of thumb, though. When they say it's both sides, it's their fault. Because when it's your fault, they just say it's your fault. You follow me? So every time you hear both sides do it, you know they're culpable. Because when it's our fault, they never say that. They just go, it's your fault. So remember that. Also, I want to go back to what I said before. You know, if you hear a performance artist say that men can get pregnant, you go, what the hell? It's a performance artist. You don't expect that from a Supreme Court justice. That's what I'm talking about. It's the migration of leftist extremism into the mainstream. That is the problem that I think you have to deal with as a moderate, as the sole remaining voice of the Democratic Party. Now, let's just I'm going to buy into this idea that both sides use derogatory language. I think it's true. I think the Democrats are more demonizing. They say you're a threat to democracy. Republicans call you a socialist. But let's just say, for the sake of fun, it's equal. There's one thing you have to understand. Republicans are as square as their front lawns. There is research that shows that the right is concerned with law. The left sees law as oppressive. This is why we don't believe in a weak border. This is why we don't believe in getting rid of bail. This is why we think if you steal $900 from, I don't know, TJ Maxx, you should go to jail. That's just in our DNA. So when you think, okay, I'm going to say Brian Kilmeade's a jerk, doesn't mean that I want people to attack him. Because that's not how Republicans and conservatives think, because we rely on law and order to solve our problems. But for some reason, the left has been able to push this idea that violence is how you speak to power. And when you see somebody like Charlie, you realize that's power. Perhaps the most powerful conservative voice in a generation. And they go, violence is acceptable to speak to power. We don't do that. That's why when people say both sides, it's like, I'll give you that even though I disagree. But you got to understand, ours is cauterized. We don't move forward. We don't just go like, I heard Brian say this, I'm going to go beat up the cameraman. That's not how it works with us.
Right. Why did I have to be used twice in a negative way?
I'm trying to plant a seed.
You know, I've had death threats on me. You've had death threats on you. It goes. When I say both sides, I know what directing at me, but I just think we gotta. Look,
but I'm not talking about you.
I'm always trying to find answers.
I'm not talking about you.
Okay,
I'm not talking about you at all. And I do agree with you. I do also believe that there's an undercurrent here of grievance that has spread from the left and could envelop the right at some point.
Yes, grievance and grief. It is a lot to grapple with as a country. Up next, think Joe Biden could do this? President Trump dazzles the royals. Stay with.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.